It's all about the Health and Healing Hub experience each and every Saturday on your favorite station between the hours of 2 and 4. ContrastRadio.net.
Grand Rising, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Health and Healing Hub experience. How are you, ladies and gents? How are you? I'm trusting all is well. Now, once again, it's a pleasure to have your company with us. I am Funmilola, your host, and this week I'm joined by Daniel Pink, the founder of Ubuntu Coffee Saturday. And this week we're going to be discussing the most interesting subject of the inner child.
Well, my name is Daniel Pink. I'm one of the directors of Ubuntu Learning, Leadership and Community. Been doing that work for the best part of 15 to 20 years now, working with young children and young people and families. Why? Because as from a young age growing up, I kind of recognized some of the issues that were affecting us, especially as young men. And one of the things growing up as a young man, one of the things that really stood out for me was a lack of knowledge of self. And when I say the lack of knowledge of self, I'm even talking about from my own personal family, and not necessarily understanding the historical narrative around my family coming from Jamaica, and really understanding some of the history of Jamaica, the accomplishments and the achievements and the struggles of our people in Jamaica, and how we ended up being in Jamaica as a people. I really didn't understand that too tough, and I lost my dad at a young age. I was 17, and just as I was getting to know my dad, he passed away, because it was him and my mum, when I used to hear them having conversations at home about being back home and where they came from. I picked up little things like my dad would tell me, said that he comes from Maroon Town, and up there, what they would do up there in Maroon Town, and who they were related to. So I kind of picked up those things when I heard them talking, but never really understood it. And being born here in this country, not really getting to understand what Jamaica was like, what Jamaica was about, and then losing my dad just as I was getting to 17, when really, that's the time you're starting to grow and you're starting to ask questions and you want to know more. Just as I was wanting to know more, my dad passed away, so I couldn't really grab some of those deeper stories in terms of his family and who they were, and his sisters and his brothers, because he came from quite a large family. So I didn't really get to understand that. And so really that kind of gave me a lot of challenges, being a young black child, male child, born in England, trying to understand myself in this environment, and a lack of understanding of my own history. And so that led me on a quest to start learning about my own history in terms of where my parents come from, as I said, in Jamaica. And eventually it led me to go to Jamaica. And by going to Jamaica and meeting up with my mum's nephew over there, was a big man. His name was Benny, very special man to me. And he took me all over Jamaica and really showed me where our parents came from and how they grew up. And I started to understand the stories, and took me up into Maroon Town where they came from. And I just absolutely just loved it. And as a matter of fact, when he took me up into the hills where my parents came from in St. Mary's, that's where my dad came from. That's when I really started to understand about, what happened to us during the transatlantic enslavement of our ancestors, bringing them to the Caribbean island of Jamaica. And it really gave me an understanding about what kind of lives they lived and what they was going through. And there was a book that accompanied me, which really gave me a very beautiful understanding. It was a book written by a woman named Mavis Campbell, and it was called The Maroons, from 1650 to the present kind of time. So that really gave me a real calming down of myself as a youngster, because, you know, I just wasn't really connected to myself as I should have felt. But reading that book by Mavis Campbell, The Maroons, and then going and meeting my cousin out there and him taking me all over the place, it's like I was just at home. I just felt at home. I felt at peace with myself. And, you know, that just continued on the journey. So hence the reason why, in getting a deeper understanding of myself, I was happy to share some of those things as I started to work with young people, because I was involved in kind of youth and community work at one stage. And I recognized working with black boys, especially black boys and black girls, that, you know, there was a lack of understanding of self from their own parents' point of view, in terms of grandparents and, you know, the great grandparents, who they are and those kind of things. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start working with them. And really, that's how it started. And so, you know, we came through a program which we first started out was called Mandiani. And the Mandiani project, working in Lewisham, right across the borough in primary schools and secondary schools, raising the self-esteem and confidence of young people. And it just sat right with my nature. And, you know, hey, here we started. And then here we are now with Ubuntu, doing the work that we were doing from those times, and connecting in with other services, especially black services, that was there to support young people. So that was the reason why Ubuntu then eventually came into being.
Just how important it is for us as youngsters to have a good start, the best start that we could ever have. I was listening to, I've got her name here, Dr. Karishma Ahuja. She's an Indian doctor, and I heard her teaching about, you know, the subconscious mind and the inner child, and that the inner child is actually, the inner child and the subconscious mind is the same thing, basically. And just how, for example, if you have 12 thoughts in the conscious mind, you have 12 million thoughts in the subconscious mind, and that the subconscious mind doesn't forget anything. You know, we can program the subconscious mind so that we can have the best of our thoughts in the forefront. But everything that we've experienced stays there. And so for me, it's so important, especially between the ages of 0 to 7. You know, is it the Jesuits? And also Aristotle that says, give me a child until it is 7 and I'll show you the man. That just confirms to me how important and how impressionable we are as youngsters all through our lives, because the subconscious mind is always there, but particularly when we're young. So it just reminds me of this. Now, I have siblings. There's 7 of us all together. I have a brother that lives in Nigeria, big bro, Nigeria, and a sister. They're older than me. And the rest of us, there's another sister as well. She kind of lived most of her life in Nigeria, but she came over here when she was 20, and she's been here since, got married, and she's here. And the rest of us are here. But it was myself and one of my siblings, my brothers. In the 60s, a lot of African families came over from Nigeria because they felt that they can offer their better life in the UK. So they came over, and obviously they had to work. My parents were working 2-3 jobs, studying, all of that. So what happened with myself and one of my younger brothers is that we spent time being brought up by Europeans. So European families actually brought us up. When I say brought us up, I'm saying at the end of the day, your parents did not come to collect you from these people. If you're lucky, your parents come and see you on the weekend, and your parents may take you out, maybe, somewhere sightseeing or whatever, and then they take you back to these people, and these people are supposed to be looking after you. Oftentimes, these African families, they put so much trust, too much trust in people. You don't know these people. So this is one of the reasons I know firsthand. Yeah, for I think it's between the age of, for myself, between the age of 2 and 5. So it's in their care. How would you say that we know that the inner child needs to be worked on? What would be the telltale signs, in your opinion?
Well, I think when you talk about the inner child needing to be worked on, I mean, I remember from young as a little child, probably down to about 4 or 5, and my parents kind of knew the kind of character and the personality that was there in me, and cultivated it through love. And because there was a lot of love that was there from a child, it made me feel good about myself. And that's, long before we went to school in that way. It was the fun, the play fighting with my dad and being cared for, and him putting me on his shoulders, and we're rolling around all over the place on the floor, play fighting and those kind of things. Yeah. So I always remember that in terms of the cultivation for me, in terms of my remembrance of what it was in terms of being a child. I felt safe. I felt secure. I felt loved. And yes, I also got the discipline too, but my home was warm. Food was being cooked in the house, and I could smell the food being cooked in the house. I can smell it right now, actually. And it was just that caring and love that I got in terms of my inner child. And as I was growing up, my mum would let me know that I must take care of myself, and I mustn't let nobody take liberties with me and those kind of things. So I was always being reinforced to me that I must learn to respect myself. And then, even though I didn't really fully understand about respecting myself, but she just made me know that respect yourself. I've come to understand it better as I was getting older. But that inner child and being made to know. My mum and dad never necessarily sat down and said, I love you, son. They never necessarily said that. How I knew that I was loved was because I had warm feelings of security. Yeah. And I think you have warm feelings of security around you. Those things help to build you. That's what I would say.
I would, when, looking back, I would definitely say, oh my God, without a doubt, definitely our family is pure love. And I'd say, like yourself, it's not something where mum or dad would say, "Oh, I love you." You know, we wouldn't really get that, but without a doubt, I know that there was love in my family. I have to say, give thanks that after the age of 5, once they got their lives together a bit better, and they could be there for us. Yeah, mum and dad. What? Mum and dad, the proper love and care. You can tell, because there's one memory. In fact, there's 2 memories that I think I'll never, ever forget. I must have been only about 3. And I think one of them, I swear, where this could have been, I swear I know the time and the month. So the month must have been about October. I was about 3 years old. The month must have been about October. The time probably about 7:30, because it was one of those evenings where it didn't seem like it was late, but it was getting dark. It was getting dark. It was raining. I had my Mac on. Daddy had his Mac on, and he was carrying me. He was carrying me. I think he was carrying me home, and he had an umbrella, and I just felt so protected, and I felt so loved. I just, I was only about 3, but I'll always remember it. And there's another time when I remember my dad bringing me home. I don't know if he was bringing me home from these foster parents for a while, because we had they gave us a break or something, or mummy and daddy was on holiday from work or something like that, so they could take care of us. I don't know if it was that, or if it was him bringing me home permanently, but I just remember him bringing me home. Mummy was home already. Mummy said, this is an expression that that Africans have. But when she saw me, and then I just remember you mentioned the food, the smells, the food tasted like, even simple things like corned beef. I remember Mummy's corned beef that she used to make with, she used to make it with onions and then not mashed potatoes, actually boiled potatoes, and she'll put butter on it. It was, I can still taste it, Daniel. I can still taste it. The simple things, even things like when she would do cornflakes. These are not things that I eat now, because I don't really eat meat or dairy. I don't really eat those things. But then I'm telling you, even cornflakes, the milk, she would make it with evaporated milk.
Yes.
It tasted so creamy, coming from the foster parents, where they give you watered down milk, and force you to eat this rubbish, and you're vomiting it up. So it's just a contrast. I hear you. It's so important to experience these things when you're young, because they do say, show me, that saying, give me a child until he's 7, I'll show you a man. Yeah.
I can only agree with you in terms of those early memories, because when I started primary school, and it's to show you how clingy I was to my parents. When I first started primary school, my dad couldn't just take me and put me in the class and leave me. He had to stay there until I got distracted, because if I saw him making a move to go out and leave me, I would cry down the whole place. And it wouldn't be easy for them to look after me after that, because I was just so much into my dad, and the fact that he'd brought me to the school. And he used to come and pick me up as well. All of my siblings, he used to drive his car and come and pick us up. So, even when snow fell on the ground, my dad was outside with the car outside the gate of the school. And as we come out, we'd jump into the car and it was like fire in there because he turned up the heater so that we would be warm. That's how I grew up. So, you know, when you're asking about those early days, that was what it was for me, you know. Love. Love.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Oh, it truly is. You know, looking back, I do feel grateful. I have asked myself certain questions about, you know, the darker times, because I feel that if I hadn't experienced or had these experiences, I wouldn't really be doing what I'm doing now. So, and I've also realized that really, or how we see what we're really capable of, how we really see our power and our strength, how we really defy certain things is by going through something. To be something, you have to go through something. How do you know what you are if you haven't been through anything? How do you really know who you are? It's like I was reading somewhere where it said there's no information until you have been through something. On the radio show, because told you the radio show, the Health and Healing Hub Experience, one of the things that I remind the listeners of is that song that Betty Wright sings, No Pain, No Gain. And then I actually start singing it. I try to sing just to make the viewers laugh, you know.
Yes.
But it is so true. It's even, you can compare it, I'd say I can compare it to a car battery. You know, that car ain't starting without the negative and positive. It's not all light, it's negative and positive. You know,
True.
It's, how would I say, especially in terms of me, because I feel like with our healing, we tend to, first of all, we feel a little shame. We might feel guilt, even though we're not the perpetrator. These feelings they're negative, and they don't really help to grow us. But in that, when you look at the whole thing objectively, there's strength in that. Because nothing is just light. It's dark and light. Even the Most High is dark and light. You see, dark and light, and that is actually what it's about. Because both of them have there's reason for them. There's reason for the dark and the light, and both of them help you to evolve as a person. That is what I've come to learn. And so it's about, for me, I think it's about being comfortable in that, because I feel even with my father, I know the man was loving. He was loving, very, very loving, and very, I'd say, very reliable. He's reliable, loving. But Dad had issues. He did have issues just coping with certain parts of life, and them kind of things he would from time to time take that out on my mother. And then when you're young and you're seeing that affects your children. It's so important for men and women to relate healthily to each other. Especially in front of the children, because you really don't know what you're doing to your children. I don't know how more I could emphasize the importance of relating to each other in a healthy way. Let your children see that. Obviously, relate to your children positively, but also each other.
Well,
so
100%. 100%, and I can identify with that. I only saw my mum and dad ever catch up once as a child. And that was as a child. And I never ever saw that again. And I never ever saw my dad curse, carry on bad, nor my mum. I never heard them swear and use bad word around us. And it just didn't exist. It just didn't exist. I might have picked up those words later on. But that wasn't what was practiced in the house at all. We never heard no cussing and carrying on bad. So with what you're saying, those things made me feel good. Made me feel good. And we had family that would always come round on a Friday night and things like that. They would come round and some would bring gifts and this and that, and they would be playing dominoes, and the women would be around cooking and music would be playing. So it was, these are my family members and cousins. So, I felt secure. I felt safe. But I think if I go back to a time where I might have felt away, and that was in primary school again, when we was in the classroom and the teacher was always asking questions, and there was this one white boy who was always putting his hand up and asking the question. And I remember answering the question, and I remember saying to myself, why don't I know what he knows? Why don't I know what he knows? But because I'm able to look back and reflect on it and understand it better, he's a British child born in England. So whatever he grew up with his parents talking about in the household, and the experience of him being in this country, being born in this country and environment, so he was able to answer questions. I was a Black African child. I don't know nothing about the country, its history, and what different various things meant. So that kind of made me feel a little bit of a way, if you want to talk about the light and the dark. For me, the dark for me was, why don't I know what he knows? But it's, as you get older and then you start to realize more about your identity in terms of the kind of racist things that you started to hear towards yourself in terms of your color. I would always ask myself the question as I got a bit older, why do people hate Black people? Why? What is it that we've done that makes people dislike us? And this is as a child. But you grow up with it and you find ways to deal with it. But as I said, my mum always taught me about respecting myself. And so getting older, whether it was, 13, 14, 15, it didn't matter who you was, what color you were. You weren't doing anything to me and think you was going to get away with it, because our children can be in school. You weren't doing nothing to me. I didn't care what color you were, but I was a very caring person. And caring in the sense that, I grew up with white children. I grew up amongst Indian children, but I grew up with some white people, especially one young man. He had a disability, and because people used to take liberties with him, I would catch up in fights for him. Yeah. Because I just didn't like to see him being taken advantage of in any shape or form.
Yeah.
And so, that was just part of my nature in that way. I couldn't tell you about black and white, this and that and the other, but I just saw disability. I got on well with that individual. And, he had one leg shorter than the other, and he had to have an iron cast on his leg. And because one leg was shorter than the other, he would walk with a sway and a limp. And people used to make mockery of him and want to take advantage of him. And I got on with him. So I ended up in quite a number of, disputes with other children. over him and made sure that they left him alone. So that was kind of that way inclined. But as I got older and started to, as I said, recognize myself even more, and I think, as I said to you, kind of those ages up to kind of 13, 14, 15, starting to understand little bits and pieces. But as I said, didn't really get the history of my parents from Jamaica telling me. I could feel those things in terms of being in the home, in terms of the love and the care. You hear things, what your parents are saying, but you don't really know what they mean. You may know what they mean now because you've been able to find out about those things for yourself. As I said, it's when they went away to the Caribbean and came back with, fruits from the Caribbean, breadfruit, mango, and them kind of things, and they're giving it to you, thinking, "What's that?" But when you taste it and it tastes sweet, you're like, "What?" It was fantastic. But I think the real coming to a kind of standing in myself was in the 70s, in the late 70s. And that was when the movie Roots came on. Oh. The movie Roots.
Yes,
Not the remake model that they have now, but the old version. First version of Roots. Yes. And I remember when that came on TV, and then we saw, my parents sat us down in the front room, and we were getting ready to have dinner, just getting ourselves ready to sit down and watch this movie Roots. And when we saw how black people were being treated, that's when it really rammed it home, because now, I'm kind of coming on 15, 16, and now this Roots movie has come on, and it's showing black people about how they were treated during their enslavement in the Americas. And believe me, because I went to a secondary school, that, teachers were quite racist, and you had children who were quite racist, and some of them were part of the National Front. And so it was war. It was war. And when we saw the movie Roots, we went back to school, the minority of us that was in the school, and we went back and we put it on them inside the school.
Oh.
I was at home. Me and my siblings and my mum, and we were just settling down to watch this movie Roots, because there wasn't no real shows on TV that showed black people in that kind of way.
I know. And they like to put Roots on a Sunday when you're going to go to school on Monday.
Oh, beloved, trust me, when I saw that movie Roots, and remember where, again, you talk about the light and the dark. For me, the dark was people calling us the most negative and wicked names that they could call us. And, you're having to know that National Front was around in school and teachers were that way. So now coming home and then sitting down and watching the movie Roots, well, the very next day, those of us that were from the black community in the area, when we went back to school, we put it on them, especially those who were racist towards us. Oh man, they certainly got what Roots was for. Believe me. Believe me. Yeah, because some of them used to want to call us Kunta. And when they called us Kunta, we gave them Kunta, believe you me. Because nothing was more hurtful for me than when I saw that Kunta Kinte wanted to run away. And when he did run away, in order to stop him from running away, they chop off his foot. Yes. And that just said to me, what? This is how we've been treated. This is what happened to us. And my mum had to beg us not to go to school and cause no problems, because I was going to school with things on me because I was ready for them.
Wow. It's funny you say that. From memory, I do specifically remember how I used to feel on a Sunday evening, then put roots on, and I know I'm going to school the next day, I'm going to get it. But the thing is, with my experience, it wasn't actually the white children that gave me hell. It was West Indian. And it wasn't like a load of them. I'm not saying it was a load of them. It was one or two in particular. They were boys, West Indian boys. I remember the name.
Yes.
Patrick Davis. But him in particular. I was trying. Was there anyone else? Well, there was someone else. Yeah, Patrick Forrester. But was he really on the African thing? There was a particular guy, Patrick Davis. Africa Aaron. That's what I used to say. Africa Aaron. That's what I'm saying about the subconscious mind. And certain... it used to give me hell. And there's a particular hairstyle that I think we more or less appreciate today more so than back then. It's a style where, for females to wear, where the hair is tied up in thread and kind of sticking up. And I used to say, Mummy used to do my hair. Used to do my hair like that and send me to school. And then some of these children, it's not the white ones, this is my experience, will pretend that I'm a dynamite and go, Dynamite! I say, this is part and parcel of how other children can be to others. And I totally hear you.
I get what you're talking about. The African and the so-called quote on West Indian relationship at those times. I'd say, there's good and bad in everything. I was going to say, before I forget, how I could relate to you and that feeling of having or wanting justice, especially with the boy that you said that had a disability. I know I'm definitely like that. There's this thing in me, and it may have to do with, when I was younger, because obviously my age, you have people that's supposed to be looking after you. They're supposed to be looking out for you. So now, because I'm of age, I do have this thing where I want justice. I always go for the underdog. I always feel that I have to go for the underdog. Yes.
I don't care how big you are.
100%.
I just have to be for the underdog.
Yeah, 100%.
So, in terms of the West Indian and the African, I always went around at school with West Indians. So it's not all the West Indians that were on my case. No way. It was just it was one or two ignorant ones.
Yes.
But my friends, it just happened to always be West Indian. Yeah. So, you were saying, I think you were going to say something about the West Indian African relationship. You were kind of saying.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize some of that, what you're talking about in terms of the West Indian and the African brothers and sisters from the continent. We had our clashes in our school, in the sense that the name calling, the name calling. But again, the only reason why those things happened is because we didn't know ourselves. We wasn't taught our history. We didn't know what had happened to us. So that journey, became a beautiful journey in terms of then the African friends that you made, and you went and you met their parents, and their parents knew your parents. Then, it started to give a different feel and a different flavor. And so, that relationship then got better, but it was just because of our lack of understanding of each other. I mean, I won't go into that on here now in terms of those things, but For me personally, it got better the more I got older, and the more older I get, and the more things that I started to read about ourselves. As I said to you, going back to Jamaica and seeing my cousin and him taking me all over the place, and reading that book by Mavis Campbell, The Maroons. Then, I started to have a whole different look on things. And again, flipping back to that young boy that could answer all the questions in primary school, it's because I'm not European. I'm an African. And so, therefore, then there's nothing for me to feel bad about, because the whole colonial enslavement of our people and us being here and then learning an English education that really doesn't even reflect anything about who we are. So, I can throw that darkness out the window, because the light has come in terms of learning more about who I am.
What advice would you, or do you have, for those younger people that you work with that are dealing with trauma, something that they have dealt with or experienced when they were younger? How can they heal?
I mean, that's a multifaceted question, because you have to take individuals' experiences as individuals' experiences, whilst there's a collective experience too. But the one thing that I certainly would say, and I encourage young people, is to ask their parents, talk to their parents where they can, depending on what the circumstances and what their life's journey have been like, to understand, to get to know who their mum and dad is, get to know who their grandparents are, get to know who their cousins are, get the opportunity to be able to be taken back to the country of origin from where your grandparents or great grandparents may come from, so that you can get some understanding of the lives that people live out there. Because the longer you're here and you don't experience the Caribbean or Africa, is the more you're being indoctrinated with Eurocentric values and standards. And those European values and standards are not your standards and are not your principles. And once you start to connect back like that, then, you start to see things slightly differently. And the more you start to see things slightly differently, in the terms that I'm encouraging children to ask their parents about their own history, personal history inside the home. Question your parents. Why did they give you the name that they gave you? You might well have been named after an aunt or an uncle or someone special to your parents. Why your parents gave you a name? Because too many of us are walking around and have no clue why our parents gave us the names that they've given us. So I encourage young people, because that's one of the first questions I ask young people. What is your name? What does your name mean? And why did your parents give you that name?
It's important.
It's very, 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 very key. And so not just to young people I'm saying those things, I'm actually saying to parents also, teach your children about who you are, who their grandparents are, where they came from, what is the accomplishments and achievements of the people from where their great grandparents came from. So that at the end of the day, you have something to share with your children. Because I think too many of our parents don't know enough about the history of where their great grandparents came from. So that's what I encourage.
Oh, it's amazing. It makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Well, it roots you into your identity. It roots you, it grounds you. And when you're grounded in your identity, now your history starts to become more richer. And the more richer it becomes, is the more you can then start to look and rely on yourself, in yourself, for yourself, by yourself, that you can stand in any arena, not feeling inferior and less than.
Yeah, that's so key. I'm just trying to remember where I heard that, if you have parents that affirm you when you're a child, if you have parents that affirm you when you're a child, they tell you who you are, they feed information to you, positive information. It's like they're like building blocks.
100%.
Now, even if you're a parent that didn't sling negative information towards a child, even if you didn't do that, even if you said nothing, do you know that it's still damaging not to affirm your child?
100%.
It is damaging, because then what happens, because there's a void, negativity goes.
100%.
Negative, like a garden grows weeds. It would just grow up weeds.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
So I would say is if you didn't have that in terms of two parents affirming you positively, okay, or if you had parents that were slinging negativity towards you, that is like your affirmation now. So obviously that's not really going to help you. So if you had that, or you had the other side where you wasn't getting any affirmation at all, nothing, then you become your parent now. You're an adult, so you now have to become your parent. You give yourself all of this. You turn it around, and this is what you give yourself.
That's right.
See?
That's right.
And if you have to take those trips to wherever it might be, like you said, to Africa, here, there, wherever your spirit actually calls you. Because we have this thing where, although we might be West Indian, we might feel akin to Mexico. Why do we feel more attracted, or why do we like Asian food? Is this coming from maybe another lifetime or something? Just find out who you are. Find out who you are, what makes you tick. Because if you don't, then what someone else says you are, that's what you're going to believe. Nah.
That's what you're going to believe.
Find out. Yes.
Yeah,
so, I agree.
Yeah, I think what I would add with that is, especially for children in school, there are always some good people in school, teachers, that you get on better with than other teachers. And if they look like you, talk to them, find out from them, learn from them, ask them to be your mentor. Go to them because you trust them more than you trust others. There's always someone in school, whether it's those mentors that are in school, those teachers that are in school that you get on better with than any other, because you don't really understand certain things, or you may react a particular kind of way because certain things come up in you that you don't know how to manage within yourself. But you know that this teacher or that teacher, they will always be there because they see something more in you than you necessarily see in yourself. So that's what I would encourage children, especially take advantage of those black teachers that will look out for you, pay interest in you. And as a matter of fact, there are some white teachers too that will really want you to be the best of yourself. Make sure you got someone who you can speak to, and if they can help you, then it's all good. But I say, especially when you got black teachers, talk to them. Because some of these black teachers that are in the schools, they really do care about you. But it's about how you care about yourself. And so be aware of your behavior and the way you act, and, you know, go to those that can help you get through it if you're not getting it from anywhere else. In my mum's latter years, you know, when I used to go around to my mum's house, and even when she eventually, before she passed away, she had to go into the nursing home because, you know, she had multiple strokes, but she could still understand you and you could still talk to her. When I used to go into the nursing home to go and see her, don't care if I could have on my suit, I'm just coming from work, I'd get down on my knee and put my head in my mum's lap, and she'd just say, "You big baby."
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, so that was me.
Oh, that's lovely.
That was me.
That's
So,
lovely.
Yeah. Because of the nature of things that I've done, you know, being involved in the setting up like of a Black Fathers support group and things like that. And then when you hear the journey of some men and what they've been through in their lives, you know, I remember one specific incident where we set up the Black Fathers support group, and one of the men that me and him have become very, very close. He used to turn around and say to me, "I hate when you talk about your mum and dad."
Oh, because he didn't have it.
He didn't have it that way. And when he told me about how his dad treated him and his siblings, it was terrifying. For me, that was like, what?
I get that.
So,
I totally get that. That is, that's where his healing has to come in.
Yeah.
You see? Because although he may not have got that, then now is his time. And we're not here 100%. One time. We come here so many times. Now, maybe when he comes back, it's going to be different. We're going to have different experience. This is all a school, and we're going to have so many different lessons. But right now, this lifetime is for him to now turn it around and see how...
Well, he did.
He did.
He did. I mean, if you see the way how he's raised his children,
you see?
I mean, it's just pure love where he's concerned with his children. And I've met them and I know them. So, you know, it's the way how he's now changed those experiences for himself with his children.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Then sit there in that space of what his parents used to do to him.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That for me is why I say that it's important to make sure that children are loved from the perspective where we stand now. Because there's too many of our children who don't feel like they're loved, who don't feel like they're cared for. There's too many children that don't have their dads around. And these things have psychological impacts on these children as they're growing up. Because when you're young as a child, for whatever the reasons are that your parents might not be together, you think that there's something wrong with you. It's you that have done something why your parents are not together, because children internalize these things. And if they don't get an explanation in terms of why these things are the way they are, or they don't get to be between two parents who make sure that they are there for them, whether they've got to go and stay with dad for 2 days or 3 days, and then they go and stay with mum for a couple of days. But, you know, it's important. It's so important. Don't say that you don't have anybody, you don't know anybody. Look, if you have a child with somebody and you and them don't get on, make sure you know that person's mum, their dad. If they've got siblings, brothers, cousins, make sure you connect that child into them. You don't have to be with the man, but they must know their family on both sides.
Agreed.
And it's up to you to make sure that even if you and that person don't get on, that at the end of the day, you take the higher moral ground, even as painful as it might be, And you make sure that child knows their grandparent, knows their grandfather, knows their grandmother, knows their uncle, knows their aunt. Spend time with them rather than you saying you don't have anybody. And if you don't have anybody, you can't tell me that you don't have some friends. So bring them round decent, respectable friends. Make sure that, you know, even if it means you bring your girlfriends and your friends together and you all become a little family and work together and share time together so that your son is or your daughter is getting some valuable input. You don't have to be on your own. You don't have to be on your own. You're only on your own if you choose to be on your own. Because whoever your partner is, they come from somebody.
It's so true.
They come from somebody. So, you know, let's start making the extended family our family.
Makes so much sense. So much. So that's Ubuntu. That's the ethics of Ubuntu.
A simple thing is as simple as that. So, you know, I'm not going to take, I don't know anybody, I don't have no friends. Rubbish. You've got friends. Maybe you might have some rubbish friend, and then you need to build some good friend. Because if your friend them is all talking damn nonsense, then no wonder you're in the condition that you're in.
No. Wonder.
Sorry, Lola. So we got to take responsibility.
Thank you so much, Daniel Pink. Really appreciate your time on the platform.
Pleasure.
Again, to the listeners, we hope that you have learned something here today, something that you can use immediately, and if not, then in the future, and even more, something that you can actually share with somebody else. For more information regarding Ubuntu Coffee Saturday, call 07751 437 906 or email info@ubuntusln.co.uk. That's info@ubuntusln.co.uk. If you need a counsellor, contact info@unitedwerise@gmail.com. That is info@unitedwerisuk@gmail.com. Now, to the listeners, just another reminder, the information heard here is not intended to serve as medical advice and should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or disease. As I always say, investigate, do your own research when it comes to your health issues. So we're approaching the top of the hour now, when we're going to go into the advert break, and in the second half of the show we invite you to experience some of our mix and blend music selections. Give thanks.
It's all about the Health and Healing Hub experience each and every Saturday on your favorite station between the hours of 2 and 4. ContrastRadio.net.